Adobe's things to QR codes to let them know what you think. The slides will be sent out later, so if you want to do that, you can. This meeting is being recorded. Of course, if you don't want to be recorded in a live session, you can feel free to watch it at a later time. The link will be sent out after the meeting. And the standard house rules: no self-promotion, no contacting people with salesy type stuff outside of the user group. And if user group members share any use cases, please don't share that information without their consent. Staying connected with our chapter. If you haven't joined the chapter, you won't get the notifications for invites like this. So go ahead and join if you haven't, and send the link out to all your friends. User group leader qualifications. So our other leader, Brittany, has let me know that she's moving out of the area, and you need to live in the area to be a leader. So we're looking for another leader. We think we may have one, but it would be great if we could have a third, because everybody gets busy. So if we could spread the load around a little bit, that would be fantastic. If you're interested in being a leader, I will put Julie's email address in the chat, and you can email her, or you can email me and I can send it to you directly. I think that is my last thing, and I will turn it over to Kurt. Kurt, welcome.
All right, thanks. Are you gonna drive for me?
Sure. Yeah.
Heather? Or am I able to? I'm not even sure. Yeah, I'll let you drive. My name is Kurt Jones. I'm actually the Workfront User Group leader with a colleague, Joaquin, who's also on today for the Colorado group. And I work for JPMorgan, and I am one of their Workfront and Fusion admins for, hopefully I'm not breaking up for you guys. I'm one of the Workfront and Fusion admins in our payments marketing area of JPMorgan. So I'm going to talk to you guys today about Fusion. So let's go next slide. Awesome. So I'm not freezing. On my side, I was freezing a little bit. So we've had this question come up in our in many of the user groups so far this year, just kind of what Workfront is, what people can do with it, what they should do with it, why they should have it. So that's the whole reason for the presentation that you guys see here. And this deck, Heather, I'm assuming you're going to send this deck out as well, because there are some links in here that I think I wanted to make sure you guys have access to, because it does provide a little bit better information. So in general, if you guys haven't seen Fusion or what it looks like, this is basically a picture of what your Fusion admin type folks will do. It's basically building a workflow. I mean, kind of some cool colors, some cool little widgets there, but basically each one of those little items on the screen has got some kind of code behind it where we're telling Workfront or another system to do certain things. And so in general, net, it's basically supposed to be a no-code automation platform. And the two links that I provided there from Ocean and Experience Link actually have some good, just overall commentary around what Fusion is. But it basically lets us build automations to help us basically maybe improve our workflows or our processes within Workfront. And I'll give you guys some examples on kind of what that means. But there are some connectors out there with Fusion. A lot of teams obviously have more than just Workfront in their overall, marketing toolbox. You may have Salesforce Marketing Cloud. You may have a DAM that all of your assets are going into. You may have some other campaign manager type tools. And again, something like Fusion is able to connect, or at least provide some kind of connectivity to a lot of those tool sets. So if you needed to get data from your Workfront, maybe into some of those tools, or vice versa, you want data from some of those tools into your Workfront, you can do that. So Heather, next slide. All right, so this is pretty much if you're trying to talk to your bosses or maybe somewhat make a pitch, maybe some of these bullet points will resonate, but why use Fusion? A lot of folks that do get into the Fusion mode, I'm one of those people, don't have a programming background. I'm not a developer. I don't have a programming background. I do have somewhat of a tech support background / marketing background. But in general, I'm not some person that was a front-end developer or making mobile apps or things of that nature. The tool is easy enough to get started that you don't necessarily need to do any coding. So you saw the interface. A lot of the pieces of the interface help you and tell you kind of what things need to be in what fields for your workflow to kind of work. So ready-made connectors, like I was just talking about, things like obviously the Adobe products really connect with Fusion for the most part. And again, where you're just giving it some information in those colored modules to allow it to kind of do its work. It is flexible, even though there might not be a ready-made connector. It is basically an API engine. So as long as another application has an API that you're able to call or connect with, you can pretty much, as long as you have access and whatnot, you can pretty much get data in and out of other systems, even without the universal connectors. And there's some other things, that Fusion provides as well. I mean, it does basically help you standardize, right? If you're trying to build some kind of automation where it's kind of doing the same thing all the time so that people maybe aren't making errors, or you're trying to fix something because there's a lot of human error and you want to kind of automate that, you can go through and do that. And the tool has features like debugging, execution, ways to handle errors. The one thing I will note at the bottom there, Fusion, for the most part, is a separate licensed product. So unless you're in what's called the ultimate tier. If you're in the ultimate tier, it's part of your overall packaging and your cost of your license. If you're in kind of the standard plan, can't remember what they call it, but the two lower plans, there is a cost to actually license Fusion. So I did want to point that out. There is a difference. Next slide. A lot of people asked, me and others in our work groups, and asked that question if you guys were in Skill Exchange. I did a Fusion presentation last week. That was one of the questions many people asked. Well, how did you get started? What did you know? Like most folks, I was voluntold to become a Workfront admin many years ago at the company before I was at JPMorgan. They had Fusion. No one actually knew how to use Fusion. So I was voluntold basically to, hey, could you learn Fusion and kind of figure out, should we use it? What should we do? And so like anyone else, I started at that point in time, it was called Workfront 1, and that was the knowledge base. Now it's Experience League, but I started there. So I went out to the communities, tried to figure out, hey, what is Fusion? What kind of documentation is out there? And I read like anybody else. So I started there, and that helped me get started on very basic items. And one of the main things that our teams were asking for at that time was, hey, is there a way that you can automate taking our requests that come in and turning them into projects based on our templates? Because right now we're having to do that. And we get a lot of requests and we have a lot of projects, and it's kind of time consuming. And so that's probably the number one Fusion job that most folks dive into. And it's relatively straightforward. But today you have Experience League, you have community advisors like myself that literally will provide sometimes code or thoughts if you have a thoughtful question that you're trying to get solved for your Fusion. There's examples, there's tutorials. I would heavily recommend taking Adobe's training. There's a 3-day class on Fusion. I've taken it twice. It was very beneficial. I kind of realized a lot of things I didn't know what to do or how to ask when I took that class. So I would tell folks outside of your normal on-demand type pieces to go ahead and try to ask your boss for, hey, if I can get this training, I can do quite a bit of other things. the benefit of doing some of the training and some of these other things is you kind of get a test environment when you're going through the class. They actually do hands-on, like, hey, we are going to make this data move from this spreadsheet into your Workfront and back out. And if you've never done anything like that before, which I had never done, wasn't a programmer, wasn't an API guy. When you see those things happen for the first time, you're like, wow, that is pretty cool. And you kind of get hooked, like, okay, what else can we do? If I took data from there, can I take it from somewhere else? So again, these links you guys will be able to kind of click on and utilize, but it's a combination of things. I think there is some good information out there for you to use personally, but I would also strongly recommend the formal training that Adobe provides. So next slide. So the next few slides are kind of use cases. I wanted to give you guys some examples of common use cases. Many of these use cases we have in place at JPMorgan, but a lot of folks are like, I still don't get it. I still don't understand. Like, give me some examples. So these are going to be examples. Stop me if you guys have questions on any of these, but one of the first ones I kind of already mentioned. A lot of folks, taking requests from your various teams. We're a marketing department, so we get stuff from product, we get stuff from sales. Other teams, right? They want us to create an email. They want us to make a cool image. They want us to make infographics, videos, whatever it may be. They want us to create social content so they can get it out on LinkedIn. Our request queues, right? Once that happens, typically you could have an approval process review. Once that happens, then that request typically for us gets flipped into a project template. Hey, this is for a social post. Great, let's flip it into the social post project template and get it assigned and off to the teams that are going to work on it. For a lot of folks, that is manual in terms of like, yep, those come in. You may have traffic manager, basically going through and my screen just went black. Sorry about that. And they're going through and flipping those things into project templates. Well, you could use Fusion to basically say, hey, as these things come in, based on maybe some fields in the request, if you've selected social post, we could potentially use Fusion to say, well, we already know they want a social post. And so we could take that request once it's approved and flip it into a project template that's the social post one and get it down to the team. So it could save you time. It could enforce consistency because it's basically using structured data the same way every time. So that's one use case, probably the most common. Next one. I've used this a lot. We do have teams that we work with, literally just getting data out of a spreadsheet. Now, in this case, I made it a little more succinct. Say you're the system admin for your Workfront environment, you have Fusion, and your boss comes to you and says, we just got reorged and we have a new team joining us beginning Monday. And here's the list of 65 users that need to be in our Workfront. Can you, Kurt, get them into our Workfront? A couple of ways you can do that. You can spend some time going into your admin console, adding folks, so on and so forth, or doing it one at a time. Or potentially you have Fusion, you could do an automation where it's reading all the data sheet and populating that information into your Workfront instance. You can, again, what's the benefit of stuff like this? It starts adding structure. So you're putting users in the same way. If there's certain fields that you need filled out in the user's profile, you can make sure as part of the automation that it's doing those checks and it's looking for that stuff, but it's putting information in. In this case, something like if you needed to fill in user data and you have it on a spreadsheet, but you got to get it into Workfront, same kind of thing. So again, these are kind of simple, kind of straightforward, but I've used things like this in that exact use case that I gave you, where we have to add a whole bunch of people real quickly, and we use automation to do that. Let's go to the third use case. Before I jump in this, anyone have any questions? Just about anything that you've seen or anything else like that before I kind of keep going?
I had a question. I was curious how you selected the appropriate template based on the request queue that was submitted. I've implemented something like that in my previous role, and I'm just kind of curious about how you approached it.
Yeah, lots of different ways. I mean, we typically will use typically a custom field. So think about it. Our field is a deliverable type. So say we have a required field on our form that says, well, what is it that you need to be delivered, right? And it's got a list of things: a social post, paid media, an email, a web page. And as the user selects, and again, depending on your process, we in our process we say, well, okay, this, what specifically do you need delivered? They say a social post. It's not like they can choose a bunch. Now we do have other processes where if it's a larger campaign, they need multiple things. That's a little bit different. But if they need, say, a single channel item like a social post, we have a field where they've selected social post, and the Fusion job in the background says, oh, I've got a new submission. Let me go check that field. Oh, I see the field that says social post. That's related with template, 1, 2, 3, ABC. Go grab that template and, bring it in and basically assign this person, maybe the requester is the one that's going to be the project manager, as an example. But that's exactly the use case where you can use some of those custom fields right off of your form that they're already filling out, and go tell Fusion when someone says social post, that's this template. When they say web page, that's this template. And it will basically, it can go grab it and basically create the project right away. The other thing you can do, which is what we do some nomenclature in terms of like standardization for naming. So when somebody submits a request, we take certain pieces of required fields off of the request, and that builds out basically the name of the project. And so it's the same way for everybody, so that when we're running reports, project names look the same. There's a structure to some of that stuff. So you can use automations for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, I just had a question to piggyback on Josh's question.
Yeah.
This is back to how do you pick the right template? Could you associate potentially in that custom field, maybe ask for a reference number, because each template has a unique reference number, and have the user fill out that reference number, and it could align with that template as well? Maybe that could be even a simpler way if you have tons of templates, right?
You could. So I'll give you guys an example of what we do at JPMorgan. We have 2 template types. We call a base template or an event template. So in general, when you submit something to our teams, you're either an event or something else. And so those templates are very small. They have 9 tasks, basically a handful of planning tasks and a handful of closing tasks. And in the middle, there is a task called deliverables. And what I've built is when our requests come in, somebody has chosen right away at the top level, hey, this is an event or basically a marketing item. Great. I know exactly which one to choose. You're either the event one or the base one. Once that happens, we flip that project into that little 9-task project plan. And then when their project manager is assigned, inside of the project, we have a custom form that the project manager can go in and fill out. Once they've done their kickoff and their scoping, that's where we have our custom field that says, okay, we scoped this overall project. These guys need a web page. They want to do some social posts. They need an email to go out with a web page link. And maybe those are the 3 items. They select all 3 of those items on this custom form. And there's a little question on there that says, do you want to build your project plan? You say yes, and that triggers our Fusion job. And what it does is it goes and gets those 3 templates and pulls them into that base template right underneath the header where it said deliverables. And so that way they can build the project plans the way they want. So it starts with a very small base template that has planning tasks they must do, like the kickoff, and closing tasks that they must do, like we got to do a lessons learned as part of our stuff. They got to close the project, and there's a post validation controls process we have. So that kind of makes up that setup of 9 tasks. But the project manager basically could say, well, we scoped it, And this is exactly what's needed now. So we know it specifically the deliverables. And just like anything else, if scope changes while you're kind of going through that process, they can go back to that form and say, well, they wanted one more thing. They had some money for paid media. So now we need to add paid media. Same thing, they can run the job again, and it will add basically what we call add-on template for paid media. So all of those items are kind of like little add-on templates, but that's how to allow the PMs to actually build the project plans the way they want them. Sorry if that was too much,
thank you.
but it
No,
was
not
a
at
good
all.
question. Use case 3, I use this a ton. So notifications. So Workfront will send out notifications. They're pretty basic, pretty blah, and that's okay. But there are some situations that we want to provide more information to the requester or the person that maybe was submitting, say, the request or the item. I'll give you an example. We have a process where all of our marketers must submit what we call a vendor intake. So any spend that they want to do, whether it's paid media, maybe they got to get placemats at a conference, maybe they're, doesn't matter what it is, they have to put in a request inside of Workfront, basically asking for approval from their directors to make sure things are in the budget. We have an approval process around that. I used Fusion to make a customized notification for the directors because they didn't want something that just says, hey, you need to approve this. They wanted an email that says, well, what am I approving? Can you get data from the request and basically show me, like, in a nutshell, what is it that they're requesting? So we pull in some of the fields that are in the Workfront request, like what's the name, who's the vendor, what region, North America, Latin America, and what's the cost. And then we have a field for what is the context of your request. Like, well, hey, I need to buy placemats for, this conference, blah, 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 that is happening in September 23rd, something of that nature. And here's the cost. So in the email, they get that. It's a custom kind of generated email from Fusion, but it gives them everything that they need and a link basically to go back into Workfront to approve it. So that's been effective, I think, for the directors to actually make approvals. Otherwise, they were getting kind of the basic notices from Workfront that just say, hey, you got something to approve, and there was really no other context, and those were being left. So they're getting emails that it was just sitting there, just doing absolutely nothing. And now that we have these context kind of sensitive notifications, now all of a sudden the uptick has really happened in terms of they're seeing it, they're going in really quick, they know about it, and they're like, yeah, okay, I see what you're asking me to do, and they're approving it. So this is one, if you guys were in Summit, this one kind of came right from that, but you can use Fusion basically to do potentially resizings of assets. And now this is a much, much more complicated type of automation. And I will note that anything that says Firefly services, that is a separate cost. You would have to license basically your Firefly services. But I was in one of the labs there for Summit where that's exactly what they were doing. They were using some automation with, I think, Adobe Express, where we were resizing an asset that was already available into pocket sizes, like for Facebook, for LinkedIn, and it was all being run based on automation. So again, you pop up like a field in Workfront or a custom form in Workfront that says, I need it to be Facebook size, I need it to be LinkedIn size, and then you click a button that says generate, and it would basically go through and generate a new file in the Facebook size or whatever framework. It was kind of cool. So a lot more complicated, but again, I just wanted to kind of point out there's a lot of things that people think about. It could help you on your creatives where, hey, we have something that's already branded, approved, and we're okay with users resizing that on their own via automation because we already know it's approved. Instead of them going through, finding it, retooling it on their own, people without us, knowing that it was rebranded, automation could maybe serve in that capacity where, it's already approved and they're just grabbing it and resizing it. Let's go to the fourth one. So this is pretty common for a lot of folks. We're moving in the process. We do have AEM assets in JPMorgan, we actually have lots of instances of AEM assets, and we are moving towards the cloud part of AEM assets. And our goal is our final item, Workfront, that our teams and creative groups create, get pushed up into kind of a final repository with all the approved content, which is basically going to be our DAM. So you could use Fusion, and we probably will use Fusion to make sure that it's taking maybe metadata stuff from Workfront and helping to push the asset back into the DAM with all of that metadata, so that if somebody else searches it, they can find it. And or if somebody finds it in the DAM and they make an update, say, on that asset in the DAM, Fusion can be listening for that. And it's like, oh, you added some more tags. I want to make sure that I push that back into Workfront for the tags that were part of this, ultimate asset. So again, a lot of this stuff is just for structure. Think about standardization or metadata, making that stuff clean. Anything that you can automate where our human hands are not necessarily touching could be of value. Otherwise, you're looking at me kind of keying this stuff in all the time and trying to push it out there. And I may make a mistake. I mean, I'm not the best cut and paster. I missed some items here and there. So yeah, you could have all kinds of issues. Automated wise, it's like, okay, yeah, I may still have to fill out the form, but you can have automation also check some of that stuff to say, well, okay, you submitted your form, but there are some issues, or it kicks out a message that says you need to resubmit for these reasons. There's lots of stuff that you can do. Let's go to our fifth one here. I think I have a fifth one. Yeah. So this is just kind of end all be all, right? You guys can take a look at this, but a lot of our folks, this is something thinking about, typically marketing teams have some kind of lead system. It could be Salesforce Marketing Cloud. It could be something you've never heard of. It could be a homegrown system. In this case, this was just an example. Say you're just getting data, again, out from a spreadsheet. Maybe maybe you don't have a great linkage yet, or your IT team says you can't integrate, but you can get as much data as you want from an export as you see fit. So maybe it's something like your marketing cloud system, and you're getting a whole bunch of leads and information around your leads, and you want to put that into your Workfront system so that you can connect maybe the project with lead opportunities that it was supporting. I mean, as an example, you could integrate, if you have Marketo. We have Marketo, where again, you might be able to take some of your request data, say for an email or for some information, and have that push directly from Workfront over into, say, a Marketo template for it getting ready to send out for a lead gen exercise. So there are integrations like that, and that's kind of what the link is. Again, it could help both of your teams, your Marketo team, your Workfront team, maybe streamline that process where today you may be intaking stuff, you may be creating stuff on the Workfront side, then you have to pick up that stuff, hand it over, or maybe put it into another queue for your Marketo team. They have to then take that stuff, put it into Marketo, make sure everything go, and then they ultimately, push out or send out the Marketo, lead gen page when it's all said and done. And that is the way it works for us today. We are not integrated. We have those manual pieces between the two teams, where ultimately we're starting to have conversations like, wow, we get most of this stuff through the project as we're building everything on the Workfront side for that lead gen item. We have most everything you need. Can't we just push it over to the Marketo side and you guys basically templatize it and then push it out? And the answer is yeah, that those kinds of things can happen through integration. So again, this one is not a simple one. There's a little more to it, but don't be scared. It's stuff that is available. The other thing, if you guys have not been in Fusion, or you haven't been in your Fusion for a while, there are a lot of templates that are pre-made now. There are more and more templates coming almost every month as we have releases. On your left-hand menu of Fusion, there is a little heading called templates. If you click into that, some of the ones that I talked about today are already pre-built. And so what that means is They've already structured all of the things that you're going to need. All you have to do is go in and say, well, obviously I need to give you the name of my Workfront fields. They just have kind of placeholder items in there. But again, if you wanted to move data or fields, you're just going in and basically populating some of the fields that you want either, called or moved or updated. And a lot of the stuff in the templates is already pre-built. So there's some benefit there. I know they're asking for more and more folks to kind of submit template. I may have created some stuff. So teams and groups, just like all of us, are starting to submit maybe things that have worked for them. And then Adobe helps to templatize it and get it into the Fusion system. So there'll be more and more templates that are kind of pre-built that can help folks get started. So Heather, let me pause. See if there is questions. I know I have a couple more slides, but I want to see if there's anything else for the group. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I think I have one more, don't I? Can't remember. Best practices. So if you get involved in Workfront or you're voluntold, like most of us are, to start, looking into Workfront, here's a few things to just think about. Best practices, stay focused. So I've talked about a lot of things. Some of these sound complicated because they are. Others, as I talked about them, they seem straightforward because they are a lot more simple. If you start and you do get the okay, you start doing your training, you do get Fusion approved, whatever it may be, start with something small. It could just be something for your teams where, hey, your PMs come to you and say, hey, is there any way for us to get like a notification like when this one thing happens in Workfront? And maybe there's not a notification pre-built today. And it's like, oh, okay, if all requests that come in for social media, you guys want a special notification, that's a relatively straightforward item where it's like, oh, yeah, okay. When those requests come in, we can basically generate a little message with the note module and we can send it to your team ID. And you guys will get a notification anytime this stuff happens now. You won't be caught off guard. And so, yeah, something simple like that. Don't overcomplicate them. You'll be testing and debugging no matter what. The very first Fusion job that I did was an integration, which I would not ever recommend, but it was what my bosses wanted. And I was self-teaching or trying to teach. The company that I was working with was super, super nice. They had an awesome developer. I didn't fully know what I was doing, but I was trying to push data from Workfront into their system. And then ultimately I needed to get data out of their system. Well, I didn't know some certain things because I had not done the training yet. And I missed a filter. And what happened is I pushed a whole bunch of data from our Workfront instance that continued to iterate until I dropped their entire IP. And so they knew it right away. They had guardrails and my phone buzzed almost the minute the thing was happening because I'd given the developer my phone number and he's like, what are you doing? You just dropped our API. So not to scare you guys, but it will happen. There will be things that you work that work great. And then there'll be things that don't work in your sandbox and you'll be like, oh my gosh, what happened? So testing and debugging is something that you should just plan for and tell your boss is going to take me some time. Plan for errors. It's going to happen. I mean, even if you're good and you've been doing this for a long time, the more complicated things get or the more stuff people ask you to do, you'll miss something. You'll fat finger something, miss something. And the last thing is to document well. If you leave your company and you have all these great automations that do a whole bunch of things, make sure that someone else knows about them and that they could at least follow some kind of logic that you put together so that they can continue on basically what you built. So that's basically, I think, my pitch that I have for today. Do I have any other slides? I think that was my last one.
Thanks, Kurt. This has been really great. I had a question in terms of how do you document all these Fusion scenarios? We're looking to do that now, and I'm trying to find out the best way.
Man, so come across the tool. There's a cost for that tool. A company that it's called, they're called Work Focus. We are literally trialing the tool right now because same thing. To answer your question, what I've done in the past, I actually have a template. I've sent it to many people and I can care less if people want to use it or not. But I sent a handful of some of the stuff that I have documented for us, and I kind of turned it into a template in terms of what the visual looks like. All the Workfront objects that we're touching, like custom forms, fields, basically the important fields that you might be touching with your Workfront jobs and what those fields do. Because again, if I'm gone and somebody else is picking this up, they're not going to know how I built it or how I was thinking. So they need to know, hey man, what pieces of Workfront are involved in this job. So giving them the forms, the IDs, custom field IDs, native fields that are important or a part, I made a template. So I'd be happy to share if you guys want. I can get your email addresses and I'll send you what I've documented, but this tool that we're looking at does it for you. So of course, like, that's pretty cool. So again, I'll give you that information as well if you're interested in the tool or reaching out to that company. Maybe you guys can trial it as well in your environment. But it pulls all of that information together. Again, they automated it, which is very nice. And then I don't have to do it manually, which is what I've been doing. Like most folks, I've kind of manually put it all together in a template.
Thanks.
Sure. Cool. So Heather, if I could get, well, you know what? Should I be able to see him as a member? Probably. Will I be able to see his email if I want to send stuff? Okay, cool.
Yeah. And if not,
if not, I'll come back to you. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, that's what I've got.
All right. I think the only other slide I had, which may also be Jonathan related, is there's a position open at BNY. So when these slides come out, you'll have that link. It goes right to it if anybody's interested.
So that's Jonathan's position?
I think he's
they want somebody local.
So Jonathan. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I was just going to ask because, and so we've seen that in other user groups as well that I've been on. So I did ask the question. If you guys, don't recognize, I am sitting in my office. I am in Colorado. I am a remote employee. As you guys know, JPMorgan is in New York, Texas. They are not in Colorado. They do have a very small wealth management. So that's why I ask. They were begging for Workfront related people at the time, and that's the reason why I have the role that I have today. So they were absolutely in dire need. So I'm like, well, I could do what you guys need, but I'm not located there. So I just asked the question because sometimes I can tell you guys there's a lot of talent in the Workfront space, but they're all over the place. And you guys probably know that. Yeah,
even my companies, they're located in the UK. I am not there.
Yep. So it's all good. Cool. So thanks for having me. So
thank you.
Again, you can make the slides available. Yeah, if anybody has stuff, they can kind of come back to me. But Jonathan, I'll get you at least kind of what I do for my documentation. And again, I already so and put your.
Awesome. Any other questions for Kurt? Any other general questions about Workfront in general that anybody's got? If not, we can wrap it up. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining.
All right. Guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.